The Schism of National Culture. Schizophrenia in the Volkgeist. Mexico's background distinguishes it from societies that have an ancient and solidary cultural unity within which occur variation and inequalities that form true subcultures within a general framework. Here, the pattern is different. The underlying opposition that determines the structure and cultural dynamics of Mexican society is the confrontation of two civilizations, Indian Mesoamerica and the Christian West. It is not possible to understand the cultural characteristics of the Mexican population in terms of a spectrum of gradual variation, as if it were an uninterrupted continuum that links the most backward with the most developed, the traditional with the modern, the rural with the urban. What here we call advanced, modern, and urban is not the leading edge of an internal self-development, but, rather, the result of the implantation of Western civilization from above. What we call backward, traditional, and rural is not the beginning point of that development, but instead the underlying stratum of Mesoamerican civilization. The relationship between the two poles was never and is not today harmonious. On the contrary, it is a relationship that until now has been irreconcilable because it rests on the imposition of Western civilization and the consequent subjugation of Indian civilization. What explains the absence of a common Mexican culture is the presence of two civilizations that have never fused to produce a new civilizational program. Neither have they coexisted in harmony to each other's reciprocal benefit. The presence of two distinct civilizations implies the existence of different historical plans for the future. We are not dealing simply with alternatives within the framework of a common civilization, proposals that might alter current reality in many ways, but that do not question the ultimate objectives or the underlying values that all share as participants in the same civilizational project. We are, rather, dealing with different projects, which are built on different ways of conceiving of the world, nature, society, and humankind. They have different hierarchies of values. They do not have the same aspirations, nor do they understand, in the same way, how the full realization of each human being is to be achieved. They are projects that express two unique concepts of transcendence. Throughout, attempts at cultural unification have never suggested unity through creation of a new civilization that would be the synthesis of the existing ones. Rather, unity has been attempted through the elimination of one and the spread of the other. Modernization and concern with development follow the lines of substitution of a Western cultural model, and the clearest example is now closer, the United States. The notion of democracy was established 2 centuries ago as one of the central aspirations of Western civilization. However, upon being mechanically transplanted into a postulate of the imaginary Mexico, it converted itself into a series of mechanisms of exclusion, whose effect was to deny the existence of the population. It is a curious democracy that does not recognize the existence of the people themselves, but, rather, sets itself the task of creating them. It is a project that ends by making illegitimate the thoughts and actions of the majority of Mexicans. The people themselves wind up being the obstacle to democracy. By making reality a blank page, one chooses not to make use of the greater part of the cultural capital of Mexican society. It becomes an absolute impossibility to recognize, appreciate, and stimulate the development of the extensive and varied cultural patrimony that history has placed in Mexican hands. The elements that ought to constitute the core of the new culture are not here, and they are important. Ideas, knowledge, aspirations, technology, what to do, and how to do it. How did we get to the point at which we find ourselves? It becomes clear that schizophrenia surrounding the debate over national culture is the current expression of a long historical process. I would like to point toward a way of thinking about our history, one that will put the cultural reality of Mexico at the center of attention. This reality is understood as the histories of diverse peoples with ties among themselves, but who also follow their own particular cultural determinants. More than offering results, the following pages propose a future task, a collective and increasingly broad one, the analysis with an open mind of how we came to be where we find ourselves in order to decide on the best way of escaping the current situation. Beyond the related problems we face, no matter how dramatic and agonizing they may be, I propose to reflect on the matter of civilization in hopes it will permit us to overcome the schizophrenia caused by the lack of understanding between the Mexico Profundo and the imaginary Mexico.